that stood out was the fact that you're very honest with him, and that's something that he's been very appreciative going all the way back to Minnesota. How did that maybe start? I think he used the phrase, don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. How did that relationship start, and how are you able to connect with him on that level where some coaches may not necessarily be able to make that connection with him?
I will give Randy Moss a little bit of credit. I was a young quality control coach with the Minnesota Vikings way back in the day. And I remember Randy Moss saying that if you tell a player a lie and he knows it, he won't trust you and he won't listen to you. And so I remember taking that to heart and thinking, well, if I don't know, then I'm just not going to say anything, and that developed into as I grew up as a man and wanted to be a man of character, that I like to be a truth teller. And on top of that, I'm not smart enough to remember lies. So so I try to just tell the truth. And I think that players appreciate that, because even if they disagree with you, then you can have an honest conversation about it. But if you're worried about somebody's feelings, you're in the wrong industry.
He mentioned you, he mentioned Josh, and he mentioned Braves in terms of guys who this is the reason why he came here. He said it was kind of a conglomerate. How was the conversation with him on his first visit here? He referenced that again. How was that conversation with him, and maybe how did that play a role in him ultimately signing here?
Yeah, give those guys, give Josh and Mike the credit. They were the recruiters and the guys that painted the picture for the role and all that. I was able to meet Steph at the Renaissance and walk over to dinner with him and catch up a little bit, and kind of fell back into that relationship that we had in Minnesota, which was nice. But again, I think he just was looking for a place that was going to be competitive, that he was going to be able to have an impact on the culture of the team. I think he saw that the things that are important to him aligned with what's important with Coach Vrabel and Coach McDaniels, and it was a good fit that way. And I'm glad he's here.
What's it like to watch a player? Because I think 1 year anniversary was Tuesday of his surgery. Watch a player go through something like that and then just get better, develop, and come back the way he's come back.
I'm just grateful that he's being rewarded for the hard work, because he put in a lot of hard work. Even at in the times that he wasn't around here in the off season, he was still working very hard. And then once he got here, to try to build a relationship with Drake and to try to understand what Josh is looking for and all those things, he's worked very diligently at that. And I'm happy for him that it's being rewarded. And I think that it's a motivation for others, maybe not necessarily with as catastrophic an injury, but just that you get out of what you put into rehab. And he was certainly intentional with that. It was pretty cool to see.
And how much of an influence has he had on the younger receivers?
Big time. I think he helps with the kind of tricks of the trade, and sometimes he helps reinforce in a player way what I'm asking as a coach, and that's really valuable for me, that I know when I leave the room or they're in the locker room that he says, yeah, this is what he means by that. It really helps deliver that message, and I think that they're seeing his consistency week in and week out, and that's something they can strive for.
Yeah. With Randy, do you remember what it was that led him to say that?
I'd be lying to you if I did, and I said I'm an honest man. So I just remember the comment very vividly from him. It was out at a walkthrough, and I remember thinking, I'm going to hang on to that one.
Can you give us a young player like Kyle, who has a handful of veterans, maybe get a lot of the practice reps? How hard does that make it for him, them to get on the same page with the quarterback and develop that chemistry? Yeah,
some things, especially like the one-on-ones, can take a little bit of time to build that chemistry and that connectivity. I think you've seen some of that with Kayshawn and Drake, over into the boundary. So there's going to be a learning curve there, or a courtship period, if you will. But he's working really hard, and he does get plenty of reps at practice. And reps after practice to try to, accelerate that curve.
One of the things that Steph added was that your ability to see the game from a different perspective, that helps him and it helps some other receivers. The fact that you're not just a coordinator, but you're a quarterback's coach. How does that manifest itself maybe in practice and on the field when it comes to working with these guys?
I was having a conversation earlier today with Thomas Brown, and one of the things I'm most appreciative of in my career is that I've coached a lot of different positions. I worked on defense in St. Louis, and I think it's given me the ability to have a well-rounded view of the game. And also that includes some empathy to different position groups on what might be difficult or, what might be challenging for them. And so I hope that I can take that view and help paint a picture for our receivers as to how they can help the quarterback feel most comfortable.
Is it common at all for receivers who are on the show team to kind of pick up skills based on whoever they're kind of mimicking that week?
I think certainly there can be some things they want to try to add to their catalog, as they watch and say, okay, well, I'm playing this receiver this week and he uses this counter release. I'm going to try that. I think it maybe gives them some things to try. I hope they wouldn't just go on and try to full on mimic without, making sure that it's something that works for them, but definitely can, kind of spur their interest a little bit.
Is that ever something you kind of emphasize during the week if you know they are going to be, mimicking a certain guy, saying, hey, this guy has a certain skill set or tool that you can maybe add to your game?
Yeah, I think the defensive coaches probably hit them. We have scout team meetings where they'll show them cut-ups of, things that they're looking for throughout the week. And I think that's probably where they get the most, like, hey, this guy is a, power release guy, or this guy only works a speed release, things of that nature. But I like to watch that. All of us coaches watch the scout team reps with our guys to make sure that they're getting what they need out of it.
How nice to see the little things matter in a game like Pop goes down but realizes he hasn't been touched and gets up and he gains 15 more yards. How nice is that to stress maybe to the other players? Pay attention to what the little things can matter in a game.
Yeah, I think it lends itself to Pop's play style. I mean, he is an effort and finish guy, and he's a great example for everybody to see that you're playing, until the echo of the whistle. In those cases, I think there's also a bit of a savviness or just a kind of built-in awareness, that, hey, nobody touched me. I'm going to get up and finish until I hear that whistle blow, and Pop's done that a couple of times this year where he's continued on and some defenders or even, some guys around him have thought the play was over. So appreciative of the way he plays.
Are there certain coaching points you emphasize more on a week where you're playing more of a zone-heavy team versus if you're playing a team that tends to use more man? Sure.
I think your route tops and techniques will change a little bit. Separation versus man is going to look different than zone. Certainly you don't want to run into defenders that are spot dropping in zone. And so you want to, kind of cater to what you think you're going to get. But we don't have a contract with them. We've had a couple times this year where we think it's going to be super zone heavy and there's snaps a man or vice versa. And so I think it's important to, be honest to what you see.
And does it help bringing that kind of quarterback perspective when it's a team that's either spot drop or match and just being able for the receivers to identify that a little bit more quickly?
Yeah, try to give them some visual keys, things that they can look for, or maybe a certain defender that I can tell them if he stays inside leverage, it's not these three coverages, or locate that backside safety or what have you, try to give them little tips that way. I think, can help them play faster.
I don't think we've talked to you since Kyle's touchdown in Tampa Bay. Like, how rewarding was that? And were you trying to keep pace with him down the sideline?
I told him I was the closest to catching him. I was fired up for him. When those guys get rewarded, and like I said with Diggsy and his rehab, when they get rewarded for hard work, it's something that's very fulfilling for me to see. And I'm their biggest fans on Sunday, and it was great to see him complete the catch on a good route and then finish the play the way he did.
All your years of coaching with a rookie, what's the line for you? How hard is it sometimes to be hard on somebody, but understand he's a rookie and understand he's trying to, adjust and get on the same page with a quarterback and things like that?
I think it starts with building a relationship. And if you have a relationship that's bigger in football, you can challenge in ways where they understand that you're not just berating them or being a tough coach, that you're really trying to help them succeed and be the best player they can be. And so it starts there with me. And then I think each player is different. There are some guys you got to read and know that, I can be a little harder on this guy, or, I got to back off when this guy gives me this type of response. And so, it's a process with each guy, but it's one of the favorite parts of my job.
What other question, guys?
When Jeff left.
Take care.
A positive peer pressure, then you have an opportunity to be able to be really special.
What have you seen from CJ behind the scenes so far this season?
Yeah, hard work is undefeated. I think being able to have a chance to, come in as a rookie to kind of try to continue to prove yourself and try to find ways to figure out, what role can I carve out. And I think the biggest thing for him is being able to just put his head down and continue to work every single day, having some opportunities on a look squad team to kind of service our defense as pocket times. It's been improved as a route runner, continues a really good job of trying to find ways for me to get him to maximize his skill set and ability. When you're a large, powerful man, use it to your advantage. So football is a violent game and it rewards those who play it violently. So use it to your advantage and be able to kind of put yourself in a spot to hopefully continue to carve our roles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Great, how you doing?
Good. Just wanted to ask you about some of the advantages of being under center. And I think that's kind of coming back a little bit in the league now with the quarterback being more under centers.
Depends on where you are. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
here definitely.
No question.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the pros to having Drake under center so much?
I think one is the advantage and angles you have from the run game. So to be able to attack people from a different perspective, I think it forces defense to have to honor certain gaps where you can attack them from under center, but also the play action pass. I think being able to build some tendencies week in and week out offensively to eventually break them is an advantage that we can have, from being in the shotgun to being in the center to or the tailback is lined up in a gun far, the gun near set, the tight end on the ball, off the ball. But specifically what you asked about as far as being in the center to me is just being able to marry the run and the pass between the run game, the movements, the keepers, and also the play action pass.
Yeah, Dan, I just noticed was you guys running a little bit more quick game from under center.
Yeah.
Just what changes in terms of the quarterback drop and things like that from just one back and go in the gun to the 3 steps and things like that?
Yeah, I think it varies week to week depending on who you're playing. But again, as far as us creating tendencies, being able to not just have defensive think run or play action shots from under center, we can still run action screens to the running back, to the tailback. As you mentioned, we can do 3, 5, 7 step drops from under center. So being able to try to make yourself as balanced as possible and make yourself hard to defend.
How about this Bengals defense? Where do they possibly put stress on you?
I mean, to me, it's how they match you personnel-wise. I think most teams in this league are normal match defenses, meaning if you put 12, 13, 21, 22 in the grass, they match you in base. If you put 11 on the grass, they match you in nickel. I think for the most part, they'll match you in 11 versus nickel defense. But the change is when it comes to how you match 12 personnel. So we use a good amount of that with both our tight ends. And so having to kind of play the chess game between base and nickel, people having late subs, and also what those different defenses present themselves. I think they play a number of different fronts out of base defense. They play under, they play over, they have 6-1 adjustments, they play diamond. So it's a lot of different variations to kind of take you off of what you may normally see week in and week out. I think most teams in base defense are kind of fixed on, hey, we're going to be an under team, or we'll be an over team, or a diamond team. They mix in all three. And then when it comes to nickel defense, just the variations of how they try to disguise and hold things from a shell, playing deep to short. So post-snap reaction when it comes to coverage. So is it quarters? Is it quarter, half? Are they dropping down and playing single high coverage? Is it man-to-man coverage? So they do a good job of trying to disguise and hide those indicators.
Interesting.
Have you seen Jack get more comfortable at fullback? I know it's relatively new for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult role, I think, to be in. I think being able to maneuver in the box, to understand how to adjust to different angles, and obviously the picture change. It's been a work in progress from training camp up until now, but he's embraced it. He works his butt off every single day. I try to find as many ways as possible to try to give him tips and tools to help enhance his ability. Like the rest of the room, he's done a really good job of trying to embrace that role and get better every week.
Have you had Kairos in the room at all? He told me that you guys make it as easy as possible for him when he has to take on those fullback roles.
So when you have big, powerful, talented dudes, you keep the KISS mechanism, right? Keep it simple, stupid, and understand like alignment, assignment, and you have this player. So I think being able to have him as in a obviously limited role, but is a big deal for us when it comes to some normal D&D stuff, to situational offense on short yardage goal line. And some stuff we've been working the last few weeks that hopefully at some point we get activated into the game. But he's been phenomenal as far as how he approaches it, the unselfish nature to being able to be involved in all three phases. I remember even in the Tampa game, he just got done with a long drive, was about to go sit on the bench, and we called him up for the first play. There was no complaining, got lined up, executed his job properly, and obviously helped us finish that game out as well in 5 minutes.
So did you get back to Charlotte for the bye weekend?
I did, yeah.
First time
since probably training camp. So, which is always tough, being away from the families. But
that's awesome.
My wife is a trooper, does a great job. And obviously when I'm there, but obviously when I'm not there as well. And having 3 boys is no easy task. So you got 2 teenagers and you got an 8-year-old, but definitely family oriented, man. I love my family. So it's always great to be able to see them.
That's awesome. Glad you got back there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate
talking with you.
Always good to see you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
What was the thought behind that?
Coach Haas and Coach Cougs, it's the one thing I had mentioned this earlier. I think, it's really probably the best situation I've been in personally. Saying as a coach is that you have 3 coaches that can pretty much coach every position. And I think it's helped our players that we are able to give them the individual attention at times, the different types of cut-ups we do for them. And, I can't say it enough about them, and the job they've done. And, we look at things, we see things the same way, but we might say things a little bit different. And the players, may jump on that. And, and that's the most important thing, is about how you can, keep getting them better each week. We know in this league it's a long season. And that's been our goal every week is, okay, how can we get better each week? And the three of us, sit down, we talk about it, we, do everything together, planning wise, what we're going to do for practice, how we're going to work with the players, how we're going to rotate the players. So I couldn't, like I said before, it's a great situation. And, Coach Rabel's in there as well. And Coach McDaniels, Josh is in there helping, and all the coaches. So, the more you can spend that type of time individually or hearing it from different people, but everyone's kind of going, trying to get the same goal. I think it helps. Hopefully it helps raise the production of the players, and that's what the goal is.
Yeah, I was going to go to Coach Rabel next because we're talking to Jared about his stance, his 2-point versus 3-point stance, and he said that Coach Rabel was actually the one that
he said let's put him up in a 2, and we were working on a couple of things, and to get him in better position. And then Coach came in and said, hey, let's put him up there in a 2 and let's go, and we did, and it's something that's worked. So like I said before, there's a lot of experience on our staff of people that have worked with the offensive line, and you welcome that. And you want to do, everyone's trying to do what's best for the players. We all have the same goal. We're trying to win each week. So it's great, and like I said before, I mean, I've done it for a long time, played all 5 positions, coached it for a long time, but every day, with Haas or with Cougs or with Coach, you're still continuing to learn. And that's the greatest part about the game. To think that you might know everything that's probably the downfall of a lot of people. That do that. And like I said, it's been a good experience of working, each day trying to make sure we can just get them better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, as close as any position room is a group, and particularly offensive linemen, traditionally one of the most closely knit groups of players. This one seems exceptionally tight knit off the field. These guys seem to have a lot of good times each week with the dinners. The mix of veterans and young guys. I mean, what have you observed from that standpoint?
I think it's been good. I think whenever you have you're in a highly competitive environment, and that's what the NFL is, and everyone's fighting for a job, or creating a role for themselves, and then you have the players on the team, and you have older players that have been in the league, really kind of taking younger players under their wing. You have younger players that are smart enough to listen. I think that's a big thing. But I think more important, like you said, I think you look at the line, and lines generally are close in most organizations. But I think I give Coach a lot of credit, Coach Rabel, all the coaches. I mean, it's a close team. I think that when you look at the team and how close we are, the D-line, how they helped us, during the year, how we're helping each other each day. The tight ends, the running backs, the quarterbacks, the DBs, everyone on the team, it seems to be, to me, probably one of the closest teams that I've been a part of. And I think all the credit, a lot of the credit goes to the players, obviously, but also, the coach and how he's been able to bring that together.
You made the statement about being willing to listen for young guys, especially a couple of high picks in Will and Jared, but also Marcus, the young guys. What do you, how would you describe that, their willingness to be coached, their willingness to listen to the veterans on that team, and how rare is that?
Yeah, I think as a coach or coaches, we've all said it, hey, listen, you can learn a lot from the players that have been there. Like just last week in general, with a Thursday game where a lot of people don't have that type of experience. Well, what are you going to do? If you think how to prepare, once you talk to guys that have done it for a couple of years, with these types of games. But I think more importantly in the beginning, a lot of it goes with the scouting department and what they're looking for in those types of players. Players that are team-oriented, players that, are going to be willing to listen, to understand, to make themselves better, because that's the fastest way, to grow. When you can learn from other people that have the experience and, maybe you won't make the same mistake, that they've made. Maybe, it's going to work for you and it's going to put you in, a little bit better position, to develop. And I think, those players, like you said, sometimes, they might not, but, they were smart enough at least to listen. I think it's helped everyone, on our team.
I was just going to say, it seems like the continuity in the line, it seems like the same guys are in all the time.
Yeah.
That must be incredibly important for what you're trying to build.
Yeah, I think the same with probably any position. I would say, that type of continuity and, being able to stay healthy, which, again, you talk about the veterans on this team, how they've taken care of their bodies. Morgan's done it for the longest, of everyone in the group. And, you have Garrett Bradbury at center, you have Mike that have been through it before. And then, you have a lot of young guys in the room. So, being able to, talk to those guys about how to take care of themselves, and that helps you. Because I think we all understand that when you go out there and play on a Sunday, obviously there's always a chance. It's a violent game. We all understand that. But more importantly, what are you doing during the week? What are you doing in practice? How are you practicing? Are you bending your knees? Are you going fast enough? Are you putting yourself in position where you're avoiding, some of those things that happen or I've seen happen throughout the years? And I think the players understand that and they work towards that.
Great.
Thank you.
At those rookie mini camps and saw what that was like, I think that's when I was like, I would like to get back to those.
UConn's not so bad.
Yeah, they're having a pretty good season.
Yeah.
All right, 7-3.
Yes, or maybe 8-3.
Yeah,
I think they have one left.
Go Huskies.
Yeah. But for the guys that you've been around, I'm curious with Josh.
Yeah.
What distinguishes him, or what have you observed from him as a play caller? That's a little bit different.
I think the sequencing of play calls, like he has a plan of what he wants to get to, when he wants to get to, and why. And I think he has the answers to the tests before they come up. He's been in his system for a super long time, and he has experiences, and he knows where every skeleton is laid and what can hurt every single play in his system, and what the complement or the answer to that is, which is impressive. As soon as a defense shows something, he knows exactly what to do next to kind of combat that. So that's pretty neat. Just the experiences that he has. He's called plays since the year, I want to say 2006. And so if you can imagine how many plays he's called, how many games, how many big moments, how many 2-minute drills. So just being able to be around that every day has been pretty neat.
Speaking of big moments, fourth down, you guys are converting over 80% of the time.
Yeah.
What do you see there that's working, what play calling or execution wise?
I think it has something to do with both. I think we try to call plays that are, comfortable for all 11 guys on the field that they've done before. I don't think it's a lot of one-off things. I think we do a good job just executing things that we're comfortable with. And I think the players have the right mindset. They're aggressive. When we get stopped on third down, hopefully that's not a lot, they try to stay on the field to let Vrabel know that they want to go for it. And that's half the battle right there. There's the belief in that.